We're glad you made it. Pull up a chair. Pull up a chair. This is where your faith gets activated. Hey!
From your car right to your kitchen, from the office to your street. If you're tired, if you're searching, there's a welcome at the seat. Got some laughter, got some truth, got a fire we can't contain. Sit down like family, leave standing up change, oh yeah. Welcome to the porch and the pulpit, where the real talk meets the word, where your story meets his promise, every heart, every hurt. Cheryl and James say, come on, let your hope rise, sing let it live. Welcome to the porch and the pulpit. This your midweek Sunday gift. Hey, hey. Bring your questions, bring your scars, bring the things you never say. We've been broken, we've been healed, we've seen God make a way. So we're laughing, we're confessing, we're expecting something new. If he did it, then he'll do it right here, right now, for you. Welcome to the porch and pulpit, where the real talk meets the word, where your story meets his promise, every heart, every hurt. Cheryl and James say, come on, where'd your faith rise? Feel it shift. Welcome to the porch and the pulpit. This your Georgia praise uplift. Say welcome. Say I'm ready. Say I'm listening. God, speak steady. From the porch to the pulpit, from my ears to my soul. I'm tuned in, leaned in. Come on, Lord, take control. Welcome to the porch and the pulpit, where the real talk meets the word, where your story meets his promise, every heart, every hurt. Cheryl and James say, come on, let the whole joy just give. Welcome to the porch and the pulpit. Now it's time, let's shift, yeah. This is the porch and the pulpit with Cheryl and James. Let's go.
Your people. Okay.
Welcome to the Porch and the Pulpit, where faith and everyday meet in real conversation. I'm Cheryl
And I'm James.
today. So let's talk about it.
Yeah, yeah. So pull up a chair and let's get it going, eh? Yeah. How was your week?
So
The week was good.
it was good. It's been real interesting. There's a lot
Yeah, a
going
lot of
on
stuff
this
going
week. A
on this
lot
week.
going.
I told you
Yes.
we got like a cherry tree full of things we could talk about. We just can pull one down and start talking about it 'cause so much, all at once.
Yes,
Yeah,
definitely.
got to
But
break you.
this
It's
week,
like, whew.
yes. this and last about men and this week, of course, things were happening around right after we did the podcast. There was one of the actors follow on Instagram talking about men and how they need to rise up.
Yes.
And listen to it. And then after I listened to it, oh, I said, nope, we're not finished with the men portion of the
Uh-huh.
podcast. I said I thought we were going to be moving on to women and things like that. We will be kind of touching on men, but
Mhm.
we are still on the role of men. So
Right.
for us to talk about it again and this week and see, and, get to some kind of leeway when it comes to, men and especially black
Mhm.
in the role that they play in their households, in the church, in the community, and things like that. So one of the questions that I wanted to ask you
Mhm.
is, do you feel that black men are failing their community or themselves?
Do I feel that black men are their community?
Yes.
Mhm.
And when I say that, so when I, a lot of things right now
Mhm.
in the community and just on social media, I see men that are complacent
Right.
or not stepping up when things around them is going on. Very few men that are out there that are talking,
Mhm.
about or being vocal about things. And I understand, of course, we always show people in the bad light. We never show them in the
Right.
good light.
Right.
So I'm not definitely not, here to bash men or anything like that. It's just a conversation that I want to have that, because I don't think that when I look at a lot of podcasts, I look at a lot of podcasts that have men that do these podcasts and things like that. I know that there's a lot of things that they're hurting from.
Right.
There's within, the whole thing, the whole gamut. Whether it be, like I said, in the home, in the community and things. Now a lot of things that maybe they could have done time ago, a lot of things that we had men to stop doing, or hold in, now it's
Mhm.
starting to bubble over. So, when I ask the question, do they feel like they're, really failing themselves or, and their community, that's what I'm talking about.
Right.
Do you feel like black men are standing up when they need to stand up? Whether wherever it is, whether it be in the home, whether it be,
Mhm.
in the community, are they standing up?
Okay, so I get it. Okay, all right, good. So there's more clarity. I wouldn't say that men are playing themselves in their community related to when you look at the role of men and their role in and out of the church. People as a whole, they dwell on drama. Okay, and when they dwell on drama, it's usually the negative stuff that is the juicier. So anytime you find out something salacious about someone or something negative about someone, that's what we tend to focus on. And when they put that spotlight on every single solitary bad thing that a man does, it puts them in a bad light. It cattle on manhood as a whole. Okay?
Mhm.
And it's important. It's just have a lot of good men out here. Okay? I'm one of
Mhm.
them. And we have a lot of good men out here who are supporting their household, you know, their due diligence when it comes to family and to their wives and their children, to the neighborhood, those who actually stand up. But I think where men get a bad rap is to where the focus is lopsided in a way. It's like I'm just going to throw a number out there so you can kind of see. It's like 85% negative and 15% positive. And when they start piling on, one man is responsible for every other man. And that can be misconstrued as well because they have this saying in the Bible, scripture in the Bible where it says, "Am I my brother's keeper?" Right? And it's essentially what that means. If we look out for one another, we make sure we have each other's back. You know what I mean? But in reality, we can't police the entire situation. We can only police what's going on in our community. So when we stand up and do those things within our community and starting in the church and in the home, that can affect positively throughout the community. And then you can have to connect, and then that broadens it out. So that kind of that if that was to happen or be reported on, more bad things would be done, or what you meant that being, it would make men, feel more that they're getting support. Because I think that's one of the things because they feel that no matter what they do, you know, they don't get the recognition that they deserve. Not that they think they deserve it, but they actually do deserve it. So they get discredited by all of the negativity that's going on, you know. And no matter what you do, they'll say, well, men do this and men do that. I'm a believer that each person, male or female, you know, is responsible for their own action. I can't control what the next person does, but man, I can influence and be an example that men should do or be done. They have a proverb that says that you can lead a horse to water, but to show you and give you that example. But if you don't take up that mantle and apply it, it's just words. It's just words laying on the ground because you haven't taken it up and applied it. So, in a sense, I don't think in certain areas, we could do a lot better. There's always room for improvement, you know. But I think we black men as a whole, we have a stigma that's placed upon us, and that it's like it's a it's like it's a spirit. It's a spirit of negativity that keeps us boxed in, to where we can't really stand up and be who God called us to be. You know what I mean?
Okay, so right. So let me stop there. So then I have a question. So I remember, well, of course I wasn't alive then, but we had a lot of more than I believe we have now of black men who went in the times of injustice,
hmm
especially now, we're in a time that's
hmm
that we looked at in our community as they were there in the forefront holding the
hmm
community
hmm
that of course Martin Luther King, Malcolm X, sons of other black men that
hmm
there and up and things in the community, making their voice known, gathering the rest of the men together, gathering the women together, gathering the communities together and things. And I noticed that now in the time that we're in, that I don't see as many of those men standing up or,
hmm
and then leading the charge in the
hmm
time that we have of injustice. Do you
hmm
think we still have men who
Yeah,
are,
of course we do. We
willing
do.
to
We
take
do.
the charge and,
We do.
you know?
Eh, yes.
Mhm.
Yeah, we do. We definitely, most definitely do. But I'm not gonna. I can name drop names and stuff like that, whatever. Like certain senators, right? We're gonna start from the government and work
Mhm.
our way down. Certain senators who are black, you got have like a King Jeffries and those folks like that who are out here doing the work. Okay, all right.
Mhm.
They're out here actually doing the work. If people would bother to do the research, you can find these men. Okay, they're not being loud and abrasive, but they're doing the work. You know what I mean? And even when they stand up and they make their voices heard or they speak up for the voiceless, it's being drowned out by the magnitude of negativity. So that the focus is drawn from what they're doing that is positive to the negative side. Okay? So where you have certain black men who are being used to support a negative agenda, and that's where the focus is, because in that sense, what we're doing is black people, we're 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 calling them out, but it's like, okay, you can call them out, but that you're not doing anything else to quash that narrative. It's like you
Mhm.
constantly focus on every negative thing to where you can't even see what's going on positively, you know? So those voices of positive, those leaders who are leading positively, leading by example, who have our interests at heart, they're they're being silent by all the negativity that's going on. So yeah, there are leaders out here who are doing the work. Okay.
Mhm.
And some people will be like, oh, well, they're not doing anything. They need to be louder. They need to be more abrasive. They need to be this. They need to be that. And my thing is like this: it would be more of us if we would all take up that role. Okay, because it's something that we can do other than getting on social media and talking about what a person is or is not doing. So those voices, those men voices, those black male voices are there. Okay, you look at the congressman from Tennessee. He's there. He's in the trenches. He's working. Okay,
Right.
but his voice is being silenced by all the negativity, and that's how the
Mhm.
enemy works. He speaks loud. He's brazen. He's brash, and he just comes and talks about. See, God works differently. That he works in
Mhm.
the stillness and the quietness, and he moves, and before you know it, you know, he starts working everything out, in our favor. So, but to say that men are not necessarily that we need that men are not standing up, that's right on all men because there are a lot of who are standing up. We need more voices to join in and with us and partner with us so that we can push forward and get our voice heard over the noise. Because, like I said before, people are drawn to chaos and negativity.
Mhm.
And when you have chaos and look at chaos and negativity draws you in. When you hear loud
Mhm.
noises, what the first thing you do? You turn your attention to where that noise comes from.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? So it draws you away from the things that you're focused on. If we were focused on what we should be doing, we could quash that noise, that
Mhm.
negativity. And that's what basically is quieting the voices of those champions who are out there actually doing the work. And then it gets, on another hand, it gets convoluted. It just kind of mashed together because now they're like, oh, well, I don't think, I don't see him doing anything because the media and social media, they always first the aspect, and then there's no balance.
Right.
There's no yin and yang that's working together to counteract each other. It's so one side,
Mhm.
you know, that who are standing up can't be heard. They're there,
Right.
but the voices are being silent, and that's and you see what kind of talking about voices. They're trying to keep us, push us back into an era that's we thought was kind of like done away with for the most part. Still existed,
Right.
but it wasn't as blatant as it is now. So
Right.
when you have noise overtaking or negativity overtaking positivity, that's what you have, and that's how our men get stuck, get labeled because
Mhm.
now they're all put in the same boat, the same uh, demographic, same way to where we're like, okay, no, all men are not doing anything. No one's doing anything. No one's standing up to us. Nobody's protecting us. Nobody is standing up against what's going on, you know. But then here's the thing. Here's the thing, Sean. When men do speak up and you finally hear what they're saying, right? And you finally hear what
Right.
they're saying, you know what they take? No, what's the first thing they say? Oh, now you want to talk. Where you been? You didn't say nothing before. So it's like you damned if you do and you damned if you don't.
Right.
Just
Right.
saying.
I always say that. Right. I'm just saying we always have that crab in the barrel mentality.
Mm-hmm.
Always like crabs, and we're always going and we're trying to pull the next one down and things. but so so when you're dealing with that type of mentality
Hmm.
and that you're dealing with so much negativity, what thing is some of the ways that we can band together and so that the things lost out in all of the sea of negativity as the black church. What role do you think that the black church? You think that they're equipped enough or because one thing about us dealing in this in now when
Hmm.
it comes to things, one thing the church likes to do is say, well, we don't need yes, you need to vote and everything, and they brush
Hmm.
over that, and and we just need to pray, we just need to pray,
Hmm.
and that, and they put aside that yes, we need to pray, but we also need to act.
That's it.
And I
That's it.
also know that not only did black men lead the church, also black men who were in the church and the led the church for a lot of injustices that were going on. And so, do we still have that same foundation or that, to church is ready to stand up as well and lead the
Mhm.
charge
Okay. All right.
much into ourselves?
What I think is, hold on one second. What I think is, the church has to really stand up in authority that God has given us. Okay. And hold on one second. I'm so sorry. I can edit all that stuff out. That boy, the stuff I can edit all the stuff out. So it's not a big deal.
You
Um.
know.
So so the church itself has to stand up, right? We have to stand
Mhm.
up, and we have to stand up in authority that God has given us. Okay. All
Mhm.
right. So every church has to be speaking and doing and saying the same thing when it comes to standing up for the rights of black people, of all people. Okay.
Of all,
Especially
yeah.
if you're in the
Mhm.
black, because we're going to talk about black stuff. We're going to talk about us today
Mhm.
and standing up
Mhm.
for black people. The church has to stand up in authority that God is giving us. Okay. And it starts with the men. Starts with the men. Because men are put in leadership roles by God. Okay? In the Bible, it says, Jesus says, I believe in Matthew chapter 5, I think it's around the 18th or 19th verse, he says, all authority has been given to me, right? Which means all authority has been given to Jesus in heaven and earth. So therefore, with his commission, he told us to go into the highways and byways and make disciples of all men. So when you make disciples of all men, you start to bring them in and teaching the ways of Christ. Thereby, when they have that foundation, right? When they have that foundation,
Mhm.
they'll be able to lead properly. Hold on one second, okay? I got to answer the baby. And then I'm still going to talk when I'm going to be off camera.
Yeah, okay.
But anyway, no, we're going to give me a second. Let's take a pause. Play some music. Let's take a musical break.
Okay. Okay. You were talking.
So as we were, so as I was saying, when it relates to the authority, right? Authority, man's authority, God, we got to take it right back to the Bible. That's where we got to start from. Whether you like it or not, it is what it is. We have to take it back to the Bible. So we take it back to the Bible,
Mhm.
and when God created man, He created earth, okay? Gave him authority over the
Mhm.
earth, of everything in the earth, okay? That included women, animals, everything in the earth was under his charge, under his dominion. He is the one that cultivates and takes that leadership role and making sure everything was running correctly according to the authority, not his own authority, but according to the authority that given God. So, fast forwarding, okay, men have to step back into that authority role that's their God given right to have that leadership authority. And nobody can't
Mhm.
take that from them because no one gave it to them except for God. So we can start there. Okay? So we need to step back into those roles, across the board. For those who are doing it, great and fantastic. The only thing I would say, continue to do it according to the will and purpose of God, not of your own authority. Pray, ask God for direction for what you need to be doing, because what you're doing in the spiritual realm will affect what's happening in the natural and vice versa. Okay, whatever you bind on earth shall be bound in heaven. Okay, and whatever
Yes.
is bound on loose on earth shall be loose in heaven. So it has an effect. Okay,
Uh-huh.
so that's where that starts. So we got to pick giving, right? So now when we
Mhm.
step back and take that authority, and then we go out and we teach other men. See, we make we're called to make disciples, go out and make disciples, right? Of the nation, right? Teaching and baptizing them in the name of Jesus. Now, once we do
Mhm.
that, those people now become disciples, and they get the roadmap or the script on how to live holy before God, and how to lead, because God gives us those instructions. Okay, we have strayed away from that, and the reason why I say that is because our minds have been corrupted. This goes all the way back to slavery. Okay, a lot of folks
Right.
don't want to hear that
Right.
because they're tired of hearing about our story, but our story is true, and it's an integral part of who we are. And I'm not going to go into the whole long thing. I'm just going to just hit it bullet pointed real quick. When you have when we were in slavery, black men, were ostracized from their families. Okay, they were
Mhm.
beaten, humiliated, stripped down in front of their women and their children. They were emasculated, and that spirit of emasculation is still happening right now. Okay, in 2026, and that spirit needs to stop. Okay, we have to prove that, and that it has to stop. Okay, so
Okay.
once we understand what the root cause is, we can deal with it, because now what it's doing is it's affecting our leadership capability. This is why there are more women in church than there are men.
Mhm.
This is why there are more women in leadership roles in the church than there are men, because men have lost their grip on their leadership. Okay? And
Mhm.
quiet as the kept, most women don't want to follow a man if he can't properly lead. Who would do that?
You're
You know what I
right.
mean? That's
Mhm.
just a
Mm.
natural
Right.
thing. You understand what I'm saying? You ain't doing right, I'm
Mhm.
going to do with you. You know what I mean? So
Right.
we have to
Mhm.
step back into
Exactly.
that role. And then if you happen to find a man who is in that leadership role, and has God, put God first, right? And he's walking under the authority and in the authority of God. You got to recognize and acknowledge that. That's when it's hooked up with. You get these
Right.
likewise, that think alike. They can We can start affecting what's going on. Church needs to be changed. To stand up. The minute we have to stand up as a church body, because let me tell you something. The civil rights movement, the church played a very important part in that. That's basically where that's where it took root, from the church. That was the
Exactly.
basis for people 65 years ago.
Right.
They went to the church. Martin Luther King came from the church. Uh,
Exactly. Exactly.
I'll even go to Malcolm X. He came from with I'm sorry, with for
He
Islam, or
was
what
Muslim. Yeah. Right. Nation of
I
Islam.
want to
Yes.
say synagogue, but it's not a synagogue. It's something else, and I
Yeah.
can't
Mhm.
call it right now. It'll come to me. But that's where they
Yeah.
pray.
It was the
You
Nation
know
of
what I'm saying?
Islam.
In
Mhm.
other words,
Right.
they had a base of religious
Mhm.
of a religious base that was based on the authority of God. Okay,
Right.
that's where they came from. Okay,
Mhm.
so to say, for some churches to say that they don't want anything to do with a political landscape or this, no, you're denying their history, because that history, that civil rights, was born in the church. So we need to rally all of our men, get them all together, and come up with a battle plan so we can confront what is going on. And I'm going to start this. I'm jumping ahead because I got an answer for how it works. Okay, for how all of this
Okay.
works.
All
How
right.
get this? How we gonna get the victory? You got an answer for it. Hello, somebody. Okay, I got to about to jump. I had to pull it back a little bit. Woo!
Love it.
So first of all,
So,
you because you know when it gets you were like, wait a minute, Baba, you feel me? But there's I got the solution, and it's so simple. But anyway, so the core part of that is getting back to basics.
mhm,
Okay, step into your leadership role, the role that God has given you. That's your God given authority. Okay,
mhm,
step back into that role. We take that role from the enemy and reclaim it. And once you do that, God is going to start showing you things to what you need to be doing, how you should be leading. Okay, how you should treat your woman, how you should treat your wives, your girl, whoever, women. You know how black women should be treated, and being able to lead and protect them and provide and do the things that you've been given the authority to do. Because we all have it, we just lost hold of it.
right,
You know,
right,
so but
right,
there are men out there who are doing it. So
right,
we need to encourage others to come on in and teach them and show them what needs to be done. But you can't do none of this as effectively without God.
right.
And I said it that way purposely. Some people will be like, "Oh, uh, uh, um, you don't really necessarily need to go. A house on sand is gonna fall. But
Mhm,
if you put keep God in your plan as your foundation,
mhm,
you'll win every. So we got to get back to basics. We got to reclaim our leadership role. Okay, and and
right,
then we got to work together.
right.
Yeah, the men got to work with other men to build. Okay, and to reclaim what the enemy has stolen from us, so that we can be able to forgive us.
So when we were in things, one of the things we talked about is like I said, I'm just gonna touch on we're gonna when you and we to get into discussion about women and
Mm-hmm.
their role and things like that. One of the you talk about men and they stand up and they need to lead
Mm-hmm.
and things and how women have no leadership roles
Right.
and I know that seeing and we had the big election that we had and other things that we have women who are in leadership roles. And I heard during that time that, women can't, lead, can't be in this position. They can't be president. They can't be the, and things like that. We are there as we me and you discussed or whatever that God made man, he made women as the
Mm-hmm.
helpmeet.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So when we are in these leadership roles and we're not in, ourselves, we helping the community well,
Yes.
but we don't
Yes.
feel the support that we
Mm-hmm.
when it's time for us to be there carrying the mantle because at the time you're not there to do it. So we have to carry up that, and thing and carry that mantle. The support is not there. So,
Mm-hmm.
what did you have to say about when it comes to the men and why we don't feel the support? When we talked about the podcast that we talked about in the beginning, or what started the whole conversation, he was talking about back in the day when certain things used to happen in the family or something like that, they was an uncle. There was always the
Mm-hmm.
father. There was always a thing. Women, anything, anybody, went to go and get women, come against a woman or something like that, put
Right.
their hands on them or anything like that.
Mm-hmm.
We
They
there
will
and
all
all
join
kind of
up
stuff like
together
that.
and they will go
Uh, uh,
and take care of that.
exactly. Well,
They'll
these
take care of that.
these days you you don't feel protected as a woman. I've seen things or whatever as
Mm-hmm.
on again we talk about social media. Of course they always put the bad, but not all
Right.
men, of course, yet again. But men be there. The woman is in a confrontation. The man will stand there and watch her in a confrontation and stuff like
Mhm.
that, video recording and all kind of stuff like that. But where is the safety? One thing is, not only do, yes, like you said, you want a man to up, but you also want to feel safe with the men that you're with. And where is the safety for women in our community that there that are growing up, going in that in the church, out of the church? Where's the safety at?
So this is the thing. Here's the thing, Cheryl. Here's the thing. I want to tell you a story.
Mm-hmm.
You ready? I'll tell you a story.
Ready.
Once
All
upon a
right.
time, not long ago, I was standing outside, you know, my home, minding my business,
Mm-hmm.
just on the street, doing me. And I
Mm-hmm.
was, it's a true story, by the way, true story. Happened a couple of weeks ago.
Okay. Mm-hmm.
So I'm standing there minding my business, and it happened. And I know people in my neighborhood, and they know me, right? Now I don't know everybody. I said I
Mm-hmm.
know people. So I'm
Right.
standing there, and I'm minding my business, and anyone, and I'm like, okay. So I had to look across the street, and I see a lady who I thought I. So I waved to her, right?
Mm-hmm.
And she came. She looked up, and she came across the street. As she came closer, I realized that I didn't know this lady. So okay,
Mm-hmm.
but you know me, I'm friendly or whatever, whatever, right? So when she comes across the street, I say, "Hey, how you doing?" Something just told me to say, "Hey," start talking to her. So I
Mm-hmm.
started talking to her. I said, "Hey, how you doing? Everything good? How you been?" She said, "Oh yeah, And she started talking to me as if she knew me. We did not know each other. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Come to find out, there was a man that was following her. Right. She
Right.
thought was
Right.
following her because she got this feeling, that
Mm-hmm.
somebody was following her. So when she stopped, he stopped. Right. And when she turned
Mm-hmm.
around, it looked like he had his private parts out.
Mm.
So that's why when I waved, she kind of like looked and was like, oh, safe place.
Right.
And she came across, I don't know her, she don't know me. So we started, she said, dude, the guy, and he's following me. And immediately, because we can
Mm-hmm.
handle that right now. Where you at? You know?
Right.
And for real,
Mm-hmm.
and when I look, I see my neighbor that I know from across the street, an older man. And I said, oh, him? He ain't doing nothing to nobody. Here, I see him every day. He's still in the street smoking cigarettes and stuff. He ain't bothering nobody. Yeah, but
Mm-hmm.
his junk is out. I said, what? So I said, okay. So I'm looking. Where he go? Where he go? So long story short, I see him coming out the side of the house that he lives in, and I'm looking at him. I'm like, okay, let me see what's going on. Because I know he went into his home. So he
Right.
comes out. This man had a belt
That was
that
funny.
was cinched so tight that the portion of the belt that you stick under the loop was hanging down,
Right. Was hanging there.
and it gave the appearance, hello, that his junk was out. I
Right.
started laughing. And she was like, where you at? And I said, look over there. That's a belt, not a penis.
Right.
She said,
Right.
oh my God. I said, yeah. I said, but better safe than sorry. But she told me that when she saw it, it just didn't seem right because when she stopped, he stopped. When she moved, he moved. So she came across the street. She said, well, I saw you and I want to come. I came across the street because I was like, I needed some. I said, no, that you did the right thing. Better safe than sorry. She said, I also got my son on the line at baseball. They had a cold word.
Right. Right.
So I said, well, that's good that you know. That he knows. So there are that
Right.
create safe spaces for women, and most know which men are safe because
Mm-hmm.
if your spirit, your consciousness will tell who they are. So men, there are men out here who will look out and stand up for women. Okay, some who just won't and just don't. You know what I mean? And it's
Right.
based on how they were raised and what their community surroundings and what they've been taught all their life, what they've been exposed to. We got to grab those men up and expose them to something different. You know, All right. Yeah,
Right.
it's good. When you see something going down, put your damn. I'm sorry. I'm supposed to. I'm a minister and I'm cussing because I get ticked off a little bit. I'm sorry, y'all, but it is what it is. Put your phone down
Mhm.
and go help. But I think if you do it person by person or case by case, most men probably won't help because they feel that they're going to be viewed as the aggressor in most cases.
Right.
You know what I
Right.
mean?
And it's
Because it's
also a
always a
safety.
catch
Right.
twenty
It's
two.
also
It's also
right. And
so
it's
you gotta
also a
like
safety issue.
it's a safety
Right.
issue. You know what I
Right.
mean?
I understand.
So just like in wisdom when you dealing with certain things, you know what I mean? So
Right.
so
But
as
when
being a
when I talk about that, I also aspect because when it's time to vote and I'm
yeah.
not support this woman
Oh yeah,
because
yes, yeah,
women.
yes, yes,
Okay.
yeah.
Or
Hey,
this woman
go ahead.
or right. Or we look and we in
Mhm.
the church and
Mhm.
everything that you the
Mhm.
majority of
Yeah.
women are in and then we
Right.
took and then when a woman or as the leadership or pastor in the church or whatever, it's the first was the ones that's jumping out and says, "Oh, well, she shouldn't be preaching. She shouldn't be on the pulpit.
Mhm.
How dare
Mhm.
you have a woman on the pulpit and things like so."
See. Mhm.
They
So here's the thing.
support. I mean,
Yeah, yeah,
right.
yeah. I get it. And I just look.
Uh-huh.
Joe, I'm right there with you, like this, 10 toes down. And I'm gonna tell you something. Men who think about that need to get a grip on themselves because they need a reality check for real, for real. Yes, I said it. Y'all need a reality check.
Mm.
A reality check for real, for real. I'm gonna tell you the truth and shame the devil.
Mhm.
And you want to come for me in the comments? Anyway,
It is what it is.
it
All
is
right.
what it is. Like I said. Anyway,
Mhm.
here it is. Men who think like that need a reality check, Cheryl. They need a reality check. Here's the deal. Let's take it piece by piece. When you talk about the political arena, you have
Mhm.
a qualified black woman, qualified white woman, versus an unqualified male, white male. Ain't
Mhm.
got no. You as a black man, as a man, you like, well, I'm gonna vote for the man because he's a man. Y'all so used to a man being in the leadership role to where he is not even qualified to be in that y'all would not vote for the
A woman who
qualified
is
woman
qualified.
with the
Right.
with the qualifications, with the doctorate, with the pedigree, with the plan.
Right.
Why? Simply because she is a woman. Let me educate you real quick, okay? Because I'm talking to y'all right quick. And we're gonna bring this right over into the church. You're gonna bring it from there to here because it all goes together. You understand what I'm saying? Men, if
Right.
men were doing what they were supposed to be doing, then you wouldn't have to have women trying to run for president. You understand what I'm saying? If y'all was really
Right.
stepping up and doing what y'all supposed to be doing and caring for what God has given you the authority to, and doing the things that God has given you to do, then we wouldn't feel the need or have that to run for president. It wouldn't be necessary for us to
Mhm.
run for those offices because you have not done what God has charged you to do. So this is
Mhm.
why women have stepped up in those roles, and that's it. And that goes for the world of politics, and that goes for the church. And when it comes to the church, sisters and male pastors, then some of y'all need to really be re-educated. Y'all need a refresher course in Bible. Okay, the simple things. Okay, I am so tired, Joe, of hearing people say, men,
Mm. Mhm.
women are supposed. The devil is a liar. Okay,
Mhm.
when you study
Mhm.
the, you break down the word, you'll find that Paul, when he said that, first of all, it was they'll say God said. God ain't say nothing like
Right.
that. They'll say that Jesus
Okay.
said it. Jesus ain't say nothing like
Right.
that. That was Paul who said that based on his experience with what was going on at the time, because in that time, in that province, in that culture, women were chatterboxing. Okay, they
Mhm.
were being they were creating disturbance, turning away, drawing attention to themselves,
Right.
much like what we do now in the church. Men and women,
Exactly.
we draw attention to
Men and
ourselves.
women. Yes,
You know,
yes.
men and women. Some of us be so concerned with our cute little shout and how long we preach, and y'all be long and wrong.
Right.
Okay? So now, certain preachers, I ain't gonna say no name, but if loud and wrong was a person, that would be that's who you see. But
Right.
anyway,
Right.
write it back.
Uh-huh.
So when you understand what the Bible is saying and why it is saying it, how it's saying it, where it's saying it, when it was saying, then you can rightly divide the word of truth. You understand? It
Right.
says study to show
Right.
yourself approved that you might rightly divide the word of truth. To say that a woman ain't supposed to preach is a lie. Okay, is a lie. You're discounting the female deacons in the Bible. You're discounting the first evangelist in the book of John, who carried the message of Jesus' resurrection back to the disciples who ran. Those were
Right.
men running like little girls, just running. Gone. That's in the Bible.
Right.
Okay, and I throw this in for free. You should know this. How you gonna tell me that a woman can't preach the word when she carried the word?
Right.
Come on now. That makes no sense
Yes.
to me. So you correlate that all the way over. You bring it back to the political arena, and you have a qualified black woman who comes in with a plan, but you don't want to vote for her because she's a woman. That shows that your machismo needs to be checked.
Uh,
It needs to be. You need a reality check because
right.
women have been running and handling handling their business for the most part.
Uh,
I'm a whole that because we're gonna talk about women later. Okay,
right.
for the most part, they've been holding it down. You understand? Because they had to.
Uh,
You know what I mean? But if the government and society had not orchestrated things the way they are, they wouldn't have to have stepped up the way they did and are doing right now. Okay?
right.
So when you put all that on show, put all that together, men and women, black men and black women, we all supposed to be working together. Okay? And I'm just gonna throw this, and then you could take it, to wherever you want to go. You're saying that a woman is not qualified to do a certain job. Proverbs 31 disagrees with you.
Uh,
Okay? See,
okay.
according to Proverbs 31, she's a benefit to her husband. She does him good and not evil. She's a businesswoman, a fellow of purple. She's out in the community. She's doing the things that God has given her to do. Okay?
Mm-hmm.
So men, okay, sin, separates us from a lot of stuff.
Right.
You know what I mean? So men,
Mm-hmm.
we're like, oh no, no, no. Y'all need to step up. We need to step
Mm-hmm.
up and do the things that God has called us to do and stop being manipulated by the enemy.
Right.
Okay? And I have news for you, black man. The white man is not the enemy in the sense that
Uh,
he's being manipulated by the enemy, and the enemy is fake. So that's who we should really be fighting. Okay? Pulling down those principalities and those powers and those spirits that's been keeping us down as a race. Okay? Because we keep saying, we keep giving, fighting the wrong people. But
right.
you got to be spiritual in order to do those types of things. But long story short, to wrap it up in the night, to put it like that, to say we got to step up and on the authority that God has given us. Okay,
Right.
and we can't stop. We can't be saying discounting our own women by saying that I'm not going to vote for her or support her because she is a woman. That's your sister. That's your wife. Okay, and have we been doing what we're supposed to be doing from jump, all of that wouldn't be necessary.
Right.
But God has given them qualifications to do just what they're doing right now. And that is what the Proverbs 31 woman is. So if you're saying that a woman can't be a preacher, a woman can't be a businesswoman, a woman can't succeed and be elected to the highest office in the land because she is a woman. So based on that fact, you need a reality check.
Mm. Right. That's right.
That's what
So
that's how I feel about it.
right. We talked about men and about men, stepping up in their home, in the community. And we talked about, men and women and, why women don't feel supported and things like that. So, and we also talked about we need to come together. So in this
Mm-hmm.
coming together and us, coming together in the community as a church and everything, what would you say to a woman who has a home that he has, fallen, struggled, go through his things, you're going through his things and everything. And now we're talking about it's a time for men to rise up, to come together. How can women, black women,
Mm-hmm.
support their men to get back to how they were or how they need to be? Put them in that.
Simple thing. Encourage your man. Encourage him. Pray for him. Love him. Make sure that he understands who he is, over who he truly is. Um, don't speak that about him. Don't tell him that the energy towards him. Push him towards positivity. Okay, that proverb woman, basically, she is good to her husband. She doesn't have any. She encourages him. She motivates him. Okay, she shows him that no matter what you're going through, you're going through something right now, but you're not going through by yourself.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, okay, you're not going through this thing by yourself. We're going through this together, here together, and we're partnering together, and we're going to go through this together. So I would say to her, pray for him. Okay, lift him up in prayer and encourage him. And motivate him. Give him motivation. You know what I'm saying? And it could be little things. Saying you come home and he may have had a hard day at work. If he's been beaten down, beaten down, beaten down. Okay, so you can make him a little meal and put on his favorite TV show. Show him some attention. Those kinds of things. You know what I mean? But you want to
Right.
motivate your man. You want to just show him that you are there for him. Let him know that he expresses himself emotionally. Okay,
Mm-hmm.
that it doesn't make him less of a man. Okay, that you with him, that you're in his corner, that you are that help mate that God has you to be.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, in other words, you just have his back. Support him. Just have his back. Say nurture him until he gets to be able to stand up on his own. You know, and get the strength that he needs, because the strength that he needs is going to come from God, and it's going to come from you.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, because the Bible says that when God created woman, man would not be alone. So we are a comfort. Women are a comfort to men.
Mm-hmm.
That's a companionship. So I would say nurture, pray, nurture, love on your man, encourage him, motivate him, have his back. Okay, nurture when he gets up, and just tell him, you got this, you the man. Whatever it takes to get him motivated. Okay,
Mm-hmm.
positive.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, positively, especially if your man who's been supportive and in that role of making sure that you have everything that you need, and they get into a certain situation and they kind of like lost their mojo a little bit. Have his back.
Right.
Just have his back.
Mm-hmm.
Lift him up. strengthen them because we need each other.
Mm.
So yeah, I would just that's what I would say. Those things, just pray, encourage, motivate, and stand by your man.
All right. Well, one of the biggest things that you said at the end was that we need each other. So
Yeah,
on that
you need
note,
each other.
we're gonna yes, where that ends our segment of the porch and well, going forward next week, I'm on the hot seat. Is gonna
Yeah,
have some questions to me about women, and we're gonna
21 questions for you. Talk about
and one of
21
the things
questions.
that we are going to do into the Proverbs scripture of dealing with women. That
Yes,
is one of the things that we're going to be talking about women and their role in the community, their role in their home, just their role with children. We're going to be talking about this is going to be an ongoing conversation. Going to be talking about relationships and also we'll be talking about parenting. I think it's a good thing. And
yes,
also
parents, yes.
health. We're gonna be talking about
Ooh, that's a lot.
parenting
Yeah.
and
Mm-hmm.
things and things like that. Serious talk
Playing
about
material. Yeah, and that
every
parenting
week.
role is a big one because I think parenting roles have evolved over the years, over the decades, in a sense. So yeah, there's a lot of stuff going to unpack with that. But yeah, we're gonna talk about all
Yes.
that good stuff.
Well, we like to thank you for joining us on the pulpit. You tune in again next week and that share to as many people as possible. And we look forward to seeing your comments. Ask that you please comment. And again, we might not agree things.
Hmm.
Hey, everybody has a
That's
right
it.
to say what
It's
how
a
they feel.
conversation. Everybody has a right to their opinion. The only thing that is that you just be kind,
Yes.
okay, in your comments
Yes.
accordingly, okay.
All right. So until next week, God bless you, and His presence will shine upon you. So until next
Amen.
week, God bless.
For pulling up a chair and joining us. Until next time.
Yes, please.
So like an old time revival song. Woo-wee. The porch and the pulpit. Come on, y'all.